Hello, let's talk about agents and the security aspects of running agents with access to resources. And I'm gonna get into a component that I think we are missing and I haven't really heard anyone speak about. So, when I say talk about agents, I mean things like Claude Code or Codex or like the Gemini CLI or OpenClaw, anything really. They are fundamentally pieces of software that they need to run somewhere. So we've seen people running these agents on their laptops. If you are a software developer, you probably have Claude Code in your IDE. So that runs in your laptop. On your laptop, it has access to the things that you have on your laptop, which is fine. But in your laptop, you might have credentials, you have perhaps photos, you have access to personal emails, you have a browser that it's logged into all of your accounts, you have cookies, you have a bunch of things that perhaps you don't want your agent reading or modifying, especially because let's assume that the agents themselves are not malicious, but they could be perhaps convinced to do something that you don't want, especially if the agent reads your emails. Who knows what you get in your inbox? Anyone can send you an email, and then the agent can read it, and we don't really understand up to what degree these agents are reliable or not. So I think a good idea is to assume the agents can be misled to do something that you don't want. And then beyond just the resources, having the agent on your laptop means that it can potentially break your laptop if you let it do so. So you don't want that. So one thing we've started seeing is people run these agents on sandboxes instead of the laptop, which is a good first step. So in the case of OpenClaw, I'm sure you've seen people buying Mac Minis and running the agent in a Mac Mini. It doesn't have to be that way. It could be a container on your laptop that is isolated. It could be an ephemeral environment in the cloud somewhere. The point is that the agent is no longer on your laptop. So at least you're safe that the agent will not break your computer. So what's next? Now you are in a situation where the agent is safe, but it's really kind of useless because it doesn't have access to things. So if you're talking about a personal agent that doesn't really have access to your calendars, it's not very useful, right? If you talk about a personal agent that can't remember what you ask it to do, it's not useful. Or if it's a coding agent that it can't write code, what's the point? So then you start giving the agent access to tools. Again, not on your laptop, but in the sandbox. So one of those tools, let's use this for tools. You need a way to communicate with these things when these things are not like running on your computer. So let's just say we're using Telegram. It could be anything. It doesn't really matter. But you start provisioning tools that essentially break the sandbox a little bit, let the agent get out of it. So the first one, let's get rid of the laptop. You can start with a communication channel so you can talk to the agent and the agent can respond back to you. So that's a good first step. Now you have communication going on, but the agent still is unable to do anything useful. So then another step that you can take is, say you want your agent to remember things, and I'm sure you've seen a bunch of posts about this. People are using markdown files as memory, which works. It works quite well, actually. So now your agent, if you wanted to do that, you need to give it a tool. let's call it file system. You need to provision a tool such that the agent can interact with your files. It can read, it can write. Cool. So now the agent is becoming more useful. It can remember, it can take notes. It still cannot read your calendar, for example. But now if you want to give it access to, say, your email, which they all sit outside somewhere in the cloud, say this is Gmail calendar, you need to start provisioning tools. Let's call this your Gmail tool. Then you have a calendar tool, and these things let the agent talk to the outside world. Now, there are two things that we need to consider here. One is traditional software concerns. What I mean by that is, how do we authenticate, and where are the keys? Like, how does this Gmail tool authenticate against your actual Gmail? Where is that key? Is that key somewhere that your agent can read? And if the agent can read it, it can maybe leak it somewhere, or is outside. And that is a hard problem, but it's tractable, and you can solve that problem, and it's fine. And you do that by controlling these tools at the harness level and providing the credentials at the harness level such that the agent never sees a key. It doesn't need to see keys. And you can also make these short-lived access tokens, and all of that is great. Now, another thing you can do now is, another concern now is, even if the tool are authenticated in a safe way, now how do you let the agent use the tool? And you have two patterns here. One pattern is to say, the agent can't do anything without my explicit approval. So every time the agent wants to do something, every time the agent wants to read an email, I have to approve it. So as human in the loop, you are always approving or rejecting. You see every action the agent wants to do, and you're very much in control. Extremely painful. And it doesn't really work, because then the agent is not very useful. On the other side, it's YOLO mode, or skip permissions, and you let the agent do whatever it wants. And we are seeing a lot of that because it's genuinely useful. When you let the agent go and do their things, they're actually very useful. So I can totally see the point of doing that. But now you're in a situation where you don't really see or know or control what this guy does. So I know there's an in-between there where agents can, so you can set rules and you can tell it, okay, anything that is Gmail, you're allowed to do. So like reading emails, cool, do it. I need to approve only once, and then you just do it. Calendars, yeah, read, fine, do it. Delete emails, maybe not. Maybe I have to approve when you want to delete an email. So you can do those things, and that gives you some degree of control. But there's a fundamental problem there. That assumes that that is very static. It assumes that a tool call, such as delete email, is either good or bad. And that is not always the case, because I can ask my agent, hey, go and delete this spam email. And that is good. And then I might want to set rules such that my agent, like every day, deletes emails that are spam, and that is good. But what if the agent wants to delete all of my inboxes, or it wants to delete, I don't know, some useful email, then that is not good. So the point I'm trying to make here is that the context of the tool call is what matters. It's not just the tool. You cannot say that a tool is good or bad, but it's the context in which the tool was invoked and all the things that happen around that invocation. So let's say my agent receives an email and it reads the email, and the email asks the agent to delete my calendars, and then the agent does that. That is totally not what I want. But I do want the agent to have the capability of deleting calendars if I ask it to. So we have a problem here that we can't really solve with static rules. So I think we need is a almost like transaction fraud, where you're actually looking at what the agent is trying to do every time the agent is requesting an action against these tools. We should be able to evaluate that, and almost in a statistical model, like no AI involved, although statistics is kind of AI, probability, we should be able to say, this pattern looks fine. The user does this every day and the user has approved this thing before, it looks fine, go ahead. And that is like when you buy a coffee and you tap your credit card, it's totally normal. But we should also be able to say, this new tool interaction, this is kind of weird. We haven't seen this before. It doesn't mean it's wrong. It's just something we have not seen. And maybe the user should approve that. And the way you do that is it's not really with static rules. So what you want to do, I think, is you want to have a capability broker. Capability broker, where the agent requests access to tools. The agent says, hey, I want to read an email. I want to do X, Y, Z. And then the broker, number one, tracks all the things that the agent has requested, so you know what's going on. Number two, it is able to detect if that given thing is okay or not, because it might be, so these are tools. And then these are resources. Files are in your machine. Oops. Just a second. So the broker is requesting tools, capabilities really. And then you have something like this. And if you do that, then your capability broker has all the credentials it needs to, or ideally it has the ability to issue short-lived access tokens such that each tool invocation is scoped both in permissions, in scopes, and also in time. And then this guy should be able to say, you know what, this thing you're requesting, it looks dodgy, no, you can't do it, or it should be able to ask the person to approve or not. So this is kind of where I see the future of like real background agents going. If you really want to have an agent that is running on the background, like 24/7, and not one, but like we're talking about hundreds of agents doing real work, they do need real tools, so you can't get away from that. You need the, let's do some sort of diagram. If you want to have real work done, you need real tools, and you need autonomy. You want the agents to be autonomous, and you also want visibility. You want to know what's going on. So how do you do that? You know, Warren Buffett had a famous quote saying that when you hire someone, you look for integrity, and how motivated they are, or something like that, and how smart they are. And he say that if you're gonna have someone that is lacks integrity, so someone you can't trust, you want them to be very dumb and very lazy, to not do things. Now with the agents, we know that they are very smart, so they are definitely not lazy, and they are very proactive. So we're not very sure about the integrity question. So that's a problem. Anyway, these are the pieces I think we need. And what we're seeing right now, we are actually seeing a different pattern within the software developer community. And let me for a second just copy paste and start over again here. What we're seeing is software developers interacting with the agents directly, right? And not in sandboxes, but in the laptops. And they don't have a capability broker because it doesn't exist yet. The laptops have credentials lying around, environment variables, files, whatever. And they are not really giving the agents tools, like to do Gmail or to do stuff. What they're giving the agent is a terminal, which on the surface, it sounds very powerful. So the agent has only one tool. Let's call it shell to be more generic. They have more tools, but this is kind of like the one tool to rule them all. Is the shell. It's the ability to run shell commands. So then the agent, essentially through the shell, it can read your files. It can write your files. It can talk to the internet. It can do whatever it wants, because the terminal is it's kind of beautiful in the sense that it's a text interface to your entire computer. You can control your entire computer through the terminal, and this is what makes it incredibly useful, because agents are like language models. So if we text, we can essentially use a computer any way we want. That's great, but it requires a degree of trust that I don't think we have, and I don't think we're gonna have yet. So this is fine if you assume that the agent will be compromised, if you assume that the artifacts the agent produce need to be inspected, and I'm not just talking about reviewing the code diff. If you assume that the agent can blow up your local host, and that's fine. If you assume that the agent can leak your credentials, your keys, your things, essentially can anything that's on your computer, it's public, let's put it that way, you can do that. And I think that's, if you accept that that's the reality, then it's fine. But I don't think people are aware that that is the reality. You know, agents, when you do it this way, there's another. Sorry, I'm kind of going on a rant here. I think I've made the point, but I'm just going on a rant. You can give the agent a browser to browse the internet, which is a scary proposition. Imagine an agent opening a browser and like logging into things. And if the agent also can read your keys, then it can just go to a browser and dump the keys and read it. Like we've seen that in Maltbook. We don't know how real that is, but it's a clear path that exists. So what I see some people is being like, no, don't give it a browser. That's not okay. But they still give it shell. And when the agent has the ability to use the shell, they can write a script, because it's just, it's just a file. And then they can execute the script. And then the script can go to the internet. So it's the same thing, same exact same thing. The point I'm trying to make here, when you give the agent access to do whatever it wants through the shell, super powerful. Also, you should not trust it, not one bit. This is really not a good setup if you want something running 24/7 with access to real tools, with access to real resources, because you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot if you do that. I think we need to land somewhere here. Sandbox will be an ephemeral environment. Like a microservice, you should be able to kill the container and nothing happens. You just spin up a new one. The credentials should be somewhere outside, something like Vault or something like that, that the capability broker can request short-lived access tokens, and then they can invoke tools, and then those tools interact with your resources. And it is at this layer, the capability broker, where you can introduce visibility, so you know what's going on, and you can also introduce controls. Say, this is okay, this is not okay. Anyway, that was my rant about agents. I think it's a super exciting future. I also think this is so early, and people are using it a lot because it truly is genuinely useful. I'm not debating that. Is mind-blowingly useful. This is great. But because it's so early, we don't fully understand the risks, and we have a wide range of people that are not technical, that might not understand these risks. I think we're in the Wild West. Yeah. It's like the internet without HTTP or without, antivirus and all that stuff. So, be safe, everyone out there. Every time you read a post about a super useful agent and you see that they're giving it a computer like this, ask yourself, how does that work? What are the risks? And yeah, see you on the next one.